In the late 70s, God very graciously opened an itinerant ministry to me. As I began to travel, I had access to church growth records and found to my horror that something like 80 to 90% of those making a decision for Christ were falling away from the faith. That is, modern evangelism with its methods was creating something like 80 to 90 of what we commonly call backsliders for every 100 decisions for Christ. Let me make it more real for you. In 1991, in the first year of the decade of harvest, a major denomination in the U.S. was able to obtain 294,000 decisions for Christ. That is, in 1 year, this major denomination of 11,500 churches was able to obtain 294,000 decisions for Christ. Unfortunately, they could only find 14,000 in fellowship, which means they couldn't account for 280,000 of their decisions. And this is normal, modern results. And something I discovered way back in the 70s, or late 70s, it greatly concerned me. I began to study the book of Romans intently, and specifically the gospel proclamation of men like Spurgeon, Wesley, Moody, Finney, Whitfield, Luther, others that God used down through the ages. And I found they used a principle which is almost entirely neglected by modern methods. I began teaching that principle, was eventually invited to base our ministry in Southern California, in the city of Bellflower in California, specifically to bring this teaching to the Church of the U.S. Things were quiet for the first 3 years until I received a call from Bill Gothard, who had seen the teaching on video, and he flew me to San Jose in Northern California. I shared it with 1,000 pastors. And in 1992, he screened that video to 30,000 pastors. The same year, David Wilkerson called from New York. Called from his car. He'd been listening to the teaching in his car, called me on his car phone, and immediately flew me 3,000 miles from LA to New York to share the 1-hour teaching with his church. He considered it to be that important. And recently I heard of a pastor who had listened to the audio tape 250 times. I'd be happy if you'd listen just once to this teaching, which is called Hell's Best Kept Secret.